world. You're going to do the intro, but not quite yet. So you can just talk to me about your lovely shirt or something,
Yeah.
because it's saying it's setting up the meeting for YouTube Live.
But why did it go
Uh,
live? Because nobody's going to be watching if they don't know we're live. So why didn't you just record it like normally? Hey?
because because if we do it this way, it's better because our lovely viewers can see it hot off the press because we're already a day late. So we've had an amazing weekend of motorsport. You're going to tell us all about it, or we're going to talk about it. Uh,
But
give us give us a
if we just
lowdown.
record it, then put it up in 2 hours' time.
2 hours time, I'm going to be asleep. It's late.
All right.
Phil.
All right. As long as you tell me it'll
We are
work.
we are live. We are live, by the way.
Are we already live? Shall I read the menu then?
I think you better tell people what's on the menu this week.
Oh, welcome. Which side's my camera now? I've moved. Which side's my camera? Right.
There we go.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Well, yeah, welcome
Perfect.
to Love Cars on the Grid, where confusion reigns because Paul is falling asleep in Australia, and I'm still not quite woken up from coming back from Belgium in the rain. So I'm your on-the-spot reporter as we go and look at the dramas of the Formula One and Formula Two and Formula Three from the rain in Spa. Then we talk about World Superbikes. We're in Hungary, and you'll never guess who won all three races. They're boring Superbikes. Well, there's plenty of action from America with both Indy cars at Laguna Seca and the NASCARs taking to the Oval at Indianapolis. While back home, British Superbikes were as entertaining as ever around the magnificent Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit, where I told you all to go last week, instead of going to the other British attraction where some Formula E's apparently drove in and out of the exhibition centre in their season's finale. We probably won't talk about that very much at the end of the show. But let's go straight to Spa. Where did you see anything in Australia? What?
Yeah, so I'm staying with my family. All my family live here in Australia, and the one set of sisters I'm staying with, they're bonkers about Formula One, absolutely bonkers. But they weren't very happy. I'll tell you that much. In fact, they all got up super early to watch it, and they thought it was a bit of a farce with the late start. That no doubt you've got an opinion on, and I certainly have. And when they didn't start on wets and when they didn't use wet tires, they all turned off. And they're massive racing fans. They got stuffed banners all over their house about Formula One and racing and calendars
But
all over the place, but
it's,
they weren't very happy.
well, no, because Formula One has to own up to the situation they're in, which is all caused by these stupid high downforce cars, which causes for me you can't overtake, you have to have DRS. We've dug ourselves deeper and deeper into this tunnel, and I'm going to be going on more and more about, as a spectator, the awful, awful situation of the grandstands. I mean, it's just okay. The music was at Sound 11, and apparently that's how you have to have music nowadays. Boom, boom. No respect at all for the racing enthusiasts that still want to go and watch. It seems to be all about the party in Miami, the party in Vegas, the party in Monaco. Because we got no information. Sitting in the grandstands, we knew it was wet because we watched the Formula 2 race. Nobody was going out drying the circuit. And I've been going on about that they need to invest in NASCAR blowers. You know, if they're going to insist on not racing in the rain, then they've got to clear the water. But instead, they sent them out on a circuit that nobody had driven around for 2 hours, apart from the parade lorry with the driver sat on the back. But this problem of water won't go away. So these huge, they tried to put mud guards. Remember those stories? They tried tests with mud guards on the
Yeah.
back to reduce the spray. But I was reading some of the experts on Twitter and articles this morning, and it's just all about the tiny, low, ride height with this massive ground effect, which just accelerates all the water from under the car out at twice the speed the car's going. Well, I don't know how it all works, but it accelerates, and it's just purely visibility. So we all accept the dangers, especially at spas, fatalities and stuff, and we all understand that 200 miles an hour, if a car's sideways in front of you and you can't see it and you hit it. So they're not racing 95% because of visibility. So even if they put the blue tyres on, which would survive big puddles, it doesn't matter because you've still got no visibility. So these stupid blue tyres, we're also, well, don't even take them around the world. It's just a complete waste. Don't pretend to the public that they have a wet tyre, because they won't ever let their cars out when the conditions need a wet tyre. So we're completely done. So you almost have to accept there won't be any more wet weather racing in any sort of reasonable sort of weather, and especially in anywhere where there's trees each side of the track. Like, of course, at Spa is the problem. They go out the valley. Maybe a
Yeah, but
wall
they're
of
nowhere, hang on a minute. They're nowhere
fans, a
near the
wall of
bloody trees.
what?
They've got barriers all the way along. They're nowhere near the trees.
No, they are tree like, yeah. And if you pan out a bit, because all those spectators on one side are on a hillside that's got trees on it. We were sitting in the grandstand right at the hairpin, the beginning of the
Turn one, weren't you?
last sort, the source. No, yes, the source hairpin. So we were looking down the hill for Eau Rouge. We can see the cars going away from us just as they left our Radion, and they were into this tree-lined area. We couldn't see the cars anymore. But from far off, you just saw this hanging fog from the exit of Radion all the way up to where they break at the top. It was just a fog that didn't move. It was just a sitting cloud of hanging water. And that, unfortunately, is the problem. But it wasn't explained enough to us. I'm raving now, the angry Simpsons man. Get your Twitter. What do they call them? Bombs? What do you put up? Zooms, bombs. What do they call them?
Meme or GIF.
Fist at cloud. But I was only angry about the awful lack of information when you're actually in a public grandstand. Because the speakers weren't very good, bizarrely, in this grandstand. And when we had people on the grid talking, we had a young lady presenting, walking on the grid. And she just squeaked away, bless her. I mean, the voice didn't fit. We got the same problem at Southampton Football Club. We got a female presenter who comes out and does interviews at lunchtime. But we can't hear because massive, big loudspeakers outdoors. The female voice often doesn't get through. So we had about 2 minutes for her on the grid saying, Verstappen, off Piastri, that's a lovely hit. But what was the information about? The Aston Martins are on the back row of the grid because they put in a high downforce setup because some teams having pit lane starts because they put the aero up so they'll have faster cars should it rain. The forecast is rain, Piastri and who's in the middle of the grid. Great that we see Yuki Tsunoda, qualifying in the top 10 for the first time. Nothing, no information at all about the race that was coming, the fact that Alonso and Hamilton at the pit lane start, explaining that when the green flag goes, those cars will come out now. As last year, they'd stay in the pit lane until the start went. But now, so they do the same mileage for fuel, the pit lane. No information at all. And literally the boom booms went until the green flag went. So the commentary started. And it was just awful lack of information. It insults people that are spending 500, 600 quid in a grandstand or £5,000 in Paddock Club of information that we're now trying to give you about the problem with cars and ground effects.
It's not just the ticket price. It's the whole thing about getting there as well. It costs people thousands to get there, fly there, drive there, whatever.
Of course,
train.
After the red flag, we had 80 minutes of this. It was 80 minutes of boom, boom, put your hands in the air. Let's see grandstand on the left. Put your hands in the air. Oh,
You did enjoy them.
On Sky, you had some good. There's drivers sitting there that could be interviewed, which happened on Sky. Apparently, on Sky, you had Nico Rosberg trying to interview various people and upsetting
Jos Verstappen,
asking questions and talking to Bottas about the Cadillac seat. But the spectators at the circuits, we just had boom, boom music for 80 minutes. The only information came from screens. It said race will start. The only information we got. And literally the boom, boom went until the pace car left the pit lane for the restart. We had no commentators, no info. It was appalling. But sadly...
They don't care. Tiff, they don't care. They could not care less about you or the racing fan.
It's insulting the traditional old-fashioned fan, and just apparently we don't want any information. It was so annoying. Then also, because we were now all, me and my friends and colleagues and guests who are fans, we were on Twitter trying to get information about what's happening. So we were getting this story about the 3-hour rule, which I didn't actually know, and whether the race had started or not. And even apparently I've now read that in the pit lane, some people thought the race had started, therefore they're now on a 3-hour. Once the race had started, it's a 3-hour countdown.
Yeah.
And yet then apparently the FIA, or I don't know if it's FIA or FOM, whoever, announced no, the race hadn't started, therefore the 3-hour wasn't going to count. Well, I've only picked this up since. had none of this information. We were getting information on the internet, not from any circuit information at all. But I didn't really know about this 3-hour rule. And apparently they said the race hadn't started, therefore the 3-hour rule didn't count. But then bizarrely, by getting my binoculars out to look at the totem pole, when they came out for the second time and they started what I thought was the race start, because they'd done a lap and the second green, it was actually lap 2. So in fact, the race had started, because the original formation lap counted as the green flag lap. And when they went out 80 minutes later, that was actually lap 1 of the race. So the FIA denying that the race had started, therefore the 3-hour rule wasn't in place, were wrong, because the race had started because we were on lap 2, or things like this. And the FIA,
but you're right. Things like this, how can they get so wrong? How can they?
well, they
And
hide
it's such
in
an
a little room.
insult to everyone's intelligence as well. People that actually
Have
know
you heard the no standing start decision? What that was all about?
No.
They were also debating after the guys go, should we have a standing start or not? You know, because that's the rule. Red flag, you have a standing start after a red flag. And apparently they looked at the grid and decided the amount of puddles in different places might have been unfair to certain grid positions. It was unfair to you could say unfair to Lando to have a rolling start, because I knew, and everyone in the know knew, that he was going to get mullered on lap 1. You know, even from a
Why?
start, it's
Why?
really hard. Why?
Why was he going to get mullered on? Why was it so obvious?
And you accelerate up the hill closer. The problem is, I mean, we'd seen the sprint race the day before, you know, when Max held off everybody. Nobody could overtake at Spa. This is the other thing I was going to come to later. You can't overtake at Spa, this great, wonderful, flowing circuit. Because if you get it out of or into Eau Rouge, 0.5 ahead, we kept on watching the stopwatch, you know, if it's 0.5 or 0.6 ahead, because you followed a car for a long way, you won't, there's not that, you're not close enough to overtake up the Kemmel Straight. Someone said they'd shorter the DRS zones. I didn't know that or not, because obviously they change it each year, so they have longer with the wing open, which helps overtake it. I don't know whether they shorter the DRS zone, but basically nobody was overtaking throughout the sprint race or the Grand Prix, unless they had hugely different tyres or you know, coming from the back of the grid like Lewis did. But basically from the start, Oscar was able to stay 0.2 off with the gap of the gearbox of Lando, who made a slight wheel spin out of the hairpin, which didn't help his speed down the hill. And then, of course, he's got the slipstream. And boom, it happened. Most Spa Grand Prix, if you watch, you'll find it's very hard to hold the lead out of Eau Rouge because the whole pack's closer.
Off the first.
Yeah, even a standing start, you know, it's hard, you know, to hold the whole thing. So and also the fact that the people in the pit lane start didn't actually have any handicap, which proved the race had started, because they weren't held in the pit lane with the restart, weren't they? They went out. Oh, lack of information.
So telling me this about Spa. We've been quite vocal about saying that it's, you know, a traditional circuit should always be there, but should it always be there? Maybe they're making the right decision that it shouldn't be there any longer because it's getting boring and you can't overtake. So,
yeah, but I honestly believe if they'd got the NASCAR blowers, did you see the film with a tractor with a leaf blower in front going up the straight?
Yeah,
a tractor.
It's ridiculous.
With a leaf,
one tractor. I'm sure there are multiple, but
the point is, we all knew it was rain was around in the air. 2 hours after I think it was maybe 3 hours after the previous Super Cups. It was drizzling with rain. We could see the track. There was absolutely no effort by any margin. I never saw brooms out. You know, we could see the rain across the track on the start-finish grid. But if in that 2 hour period you'd had those NASCAR trucks going around with their jet engine blowers, it would take all the surface water off, so you wouldn't get the spray. So, you know, get big blowers.
Do you remember when Spa did it and they just ran the cars around behind a safety car for enough laps to declare it a race?
Yeah, well,
Can you remember that?
Yeah, that was
awesome. That was insulting to the fans. Well, you imagine that
Max Verstappen had what would have been a tie-breaking win from Belgium in the 2021 scandal. You know, they ended up on equal points in 2021, Lewis would have won the world title because he had one more win at Spa. But the other thing I mean, it was the fact they went out of the pit lane, and then halfway around the lap, the red lights all came on. We were looking, blooming hell, someone must have crashed or something. What's happening? You know, literally the red lights were on, and they hadn't done half of that for. They could have kept going for 2 or 3 laps, and then got the commentary to explain, you know, why they didn't do. I think Martin Brundle. I did watch the countdown on Sky. I checked it out this morning. And Martin said that. Well, why don't you keep them going for 3 laps at least? You know, to give the crowd a bit. You waited 2.5, 3 hours for some action, and you get half a lap, and the red light goes on. It's just the way they treat the public, and they just think all
They don't care.
all they want is boom.
It's a money-making machine.
I know.
That's all it is. Money-making machine. Boss sponsors.
I do understand where they're at with this wet weather problem, and I don't think there's a cure. If the cars have still got these super aero machines spitting the water out the back, and you can't see where you're going. I mean, maybe you can wind farm. Maybe what they should do, either the Greens should get Spa to build wind farms, propellers down the side of the straight, which would blow those.
Yeah, well, they're not.
Then you need the wind, don't you, to make the wind? Well, that doesn't work, does it?
Well, they're not very sustainable, are they? Because they're hiking around these wet weather tires that they never ever used. But how about this as an idea? You know, like your pit lane limiter, you got to put that on. You can only do 90 miles an hour and 80, whatever it is, pit lane. Why don't they do it where when it's declared wet, they've got to press that and they only get 50% of their power or 60% of their power or something like that. So they can't go at 200 miles an hour because it is dangerous if you get it wrong.
But you want them to race with pit limits on.
Yeah. Yeah.
No. But they'd all be going around full throttle then. They'd be on full throttle all the way around the lap.
Well, you won't, will you? You won't be going. No, not with a pit limiter. No, so faster than a pit limiter. So maybe you get like 60% of your power.
Actually, like truck racing, which is very popular with spectators, which I don't particularly watch. They've got 100-mile-an-hour limit for them trucks. That's a good idea.
Okay, Paul. So hear me out. So it's more so because it will dry the track and it will still be competitive, still be exciting. You're not going to get many overtakes, but you'll get that snake, you'll get that concertina effect that you get in Formula E that we don't like particularly, but it'll dry the track out. If you just did it at like 60% of the power, and that'd be so easy to do.
I mean, I'm the one with the brilliant ideas normally, let's be honest, Paul, but that's actually not a silly idea.
Can I paint that? Heard first on this YouTube live.
100-mile-an-hour limit, and they could race
on the road.
Yeah,
but even a bit higher. So if it was if you gave them 60% power, for example,
limited power is harder because of the hybrid and all that stuff that's going on, especially next year with 50% engine and 50%. Because the rumor is, they're all going around hairpin bends next year, apparently with their engines on full revs.
Oh no, not like the Dakar stuff.
Because round the hairpin bend, you don't need 50% of your power is enough because obviously you don't go in a very tight corner. So the theory is
it needs to recharge the battery.
So you'll be using your electric motor of 50% of your power in a hairpin, while the synthetic fuel engine goes to full rev to charge your batteries up again. Oh, we're laughing now. Wait till it actually happens next year. God help us. But the race was actually a good race as Grand Prix goes. It wasn't dramatic because we can't overtake around Spa. And all they have to do really is actually give them more DRS up the Kemmel Straight. But then, does it look silly when they just swoop past so easily? I mean, that's the problem.
No, because you want overtaking, so you can't say it's too easy to overtake, and then you're saying there's no overtaking. Surely it's better to have some overtaking.
Yeah, so move the DRS 15 meters or 20 meters. I think they could do that sort of thing, or should. They used to do that a lot. I've never read. A lot of the circuits when we first started, like Azerbaijan and stuff, they changed how long the DRS was. Well, it certainly needs to be longer at Spa. And I know it's an artificial thing. We all hate it, purists. But I'm now in my brain. It's just giving them slipstream. The aero takes away the slipstream that we use in Formula 4 in Caterhams. The DRS gives you slipstream if you want to talk about it. So race, we all knew the race was over once Oscar had got an Oscar. Because it's not as if Lando stayed on Oscar's gearbox after he was overtaken, did he? Oscar was 2 seconds up the road in about 3 laps. again, with no comment, we never found out when DRS was opened. It was open at some stage during the race. I didn't know that because the commentary, the guys.
See, but Tiff, if they were commenting the whole way through, you would complain about that as well. You say, "Oh, couldn't even concentrate on the race because all I could hear was them saying about this, that, and the other."
Well, that's part of the commentary team. Into the lead now, and a lap 5, they've opened the deal. Obviously, you've got to listen to the French version and the Flemish version before you get the English version. So you've got to listen to 3 languages. That's fine. I don't mind
They
that.
do it in Flemish. Flemish, obviously, I know that's the home language. They do it in Flemish, French, and English,
French,
do
yeah.
they?
Yeah, we had the great Bob Constanduros. And of course, the opening laps, a lot of excitement. It was actually great love for Lewis. In the opening laps, when obviously he was in the back of the grid, but he was carving through the back half of the field quite easily, and they were cheering like mad for Lewis. It was quite nice
Yeah,
to hear how
wow.
much they all still love Lewis in his Ferrari. Maybe they love Lewis because he is now in a Ferrari. Maybe some of those fans cheering from him weren't so much Mercedes fans. Because he went up
I
to
asked around here because there are lots of racing fans here, but Oscars are number one, even amongst the Pommies, the Brits. Oscars, they all want Oscar to win. They feel that Lando's got a bit cocky, which is that's unusual, isn't it, for Brits to say that?
But of course, the big change of the race, we were all waiting for. I quite like races that start on intermediates when you know it's going to dry out, because it's always the fascination of who's going to be
Yeah.
first for slicks, which of course Lewis did because he had very little to lose. It jumped in from about 13th to 7th, I think. There were lots who suffered. Obviously, the number 2 cars in the teams had to pit a lap later. But it's amazing how places you lose a lap later. Ollie Behrman, sadly, came out of the pits all right, but then his engine went into limpo and coming out of the chicane at the end of he lost 4 places. So a lot of people suffered for not taking their tyres. Yuki, running a happy 7th, I think it was, going to get points. The team didn't call him in. He missed the in, dropped to 9th. Well, he dropped it because we had sort of 2 races. I just read a middle note. So we had the McLarens out front. And another interesting thing about the McLaren dice that gave me hope for Lando at least.
Well, they had different strategies.
Well, yeah, so Lando went for the white tyres, the hard tyres. And there was a big pre-race stuff at Spa about how Pirelli were making this experiment of normally, because they've got 6 compounds, haven't they? So normally you'll have soft, medium, hard. They can go soft, medium, hard, the softest 3, or soft, medium, hard, the hardest one. But for a change, they had this missing link. So it was soft, medium, then a harder compound. So they had the soft first, they had 1, 2, and then 4. Because they were hoping, because normally when it's only 2 and 3, in recent races, there hasn't been much difference between the medium and the hard. So they haven't had this degradation, so we haven't had a sudden difference in grip. So all of a sudden, I remembered this. Oh gosh, Pirelli, this is what they wanted. Because now Lando was on compound 4, while Oscar was on compound 2, which would surely wear out, and surely Oscar would have to pit for a second set of tyres. But instead, the yellow medium tyre quite happily lasted about 30 laps. It was pitting a lap 11, 44 laps. So they still did 33 laps on the medium. So I need to go down one. My dog's barking.
What's Otis barking
Probably the
at?
postman finally coming to drop off the parcel we're waiting for. Can I leave during the live piece to go and see what's happening?
Preferably not, because you've got the notes.
Dog, shut up. Yeah, good boy. So sadly, Pirelli's experiment, because people said, we're not going to get Pirelli's experiments because it's all wet. But we did get Pirelli's experiments, and it didn't help anyone. As we were on the stopwatch, Lando kept on catching 0.2, it's coming down. Oscar's tyres are about to go off a cliff. You remember those days? I don't think they ever go off a cliff anymore at all. There doesn't seem to be any.
They used to, didn't they?
So we had the 2 McLarens out front. Then we had Leclerc holding off Max. Max was sat in Leclerc's gearbox for the entire race, unable to overtake. Then a gap to old George on his own, having a very boring time for his Mercedes, sat on his own. A bit more of a gap to Albon, brilliant for Williams, happily holding off Lewis. Lewis, of course, got up to the back of Albon, didn't he? But didn't get any further. Yes, all right. Good boy. Good. Go guard dog. Vicious. Don't ever come near my house. Vicious. And then we had this gap back to the Gasly train. Again, with no overtaking. Gasly having quite a good race for his level of the Alpine at the moment. With Yuki right behind him, unable to overtake. Behrman right behind Yuki, unable to overtake. And a little bit about lack of commentary again, right at the end of the race. So maybe on the television, they probably highlighted this battle because, the last point. So it was quite important for press. The race is a bit boring, but there's a big battle for the last point, which Gasly was holding and holding and holding. Behind Lawson, of course, with a very good run. Anyway, so Behrman got past Yuki on the penultimate lap. So they disappeared away from the hairpin with Behrman on the back of Gasly going for the point, and Yuki on Hulkenberg was behind him. But as soon as the leaders crossed the line in front of us, everyone's standing up. The fans are all walking off to try and get to the front of the queue to do the track invasion. The winning cars go around the source in front of us. We're all applauding. I'm trying to look through everybody jumping up and down, waiting to see who appears out of the final corner. Will it be Behrman? Will it be Gasly? Will it be Yuki? There was an exciting.
So literally no news at all.
No, commentators weren't talking about it. No, so it shows how little the fans were following the race in a way, because they obviously didn't seem to be aware of this good battle, the only good battle that was going on. But sadly, Ollie didn't get by. He had an engine problem. He couldn't recharge his battery, so he was a bit one-handed.
Well, the answer is watch it from home and stuff literacy media. Don't give them the gate sales.
It is sort of go watch it at home. You advise people, but if they don't bring the race alive by talking about the racing, and interviewing the competitor in that 80 minutes, they could have interviewed all the drivers, had a bit of fun. No, boom, 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 put your hands in the air. Does it have to be volume 11? Can it not be volume 7? Can we not compromise a little bit between the ardent enthusiast and the rookie spectator that apparently wants to put his hands in the air? It's the most exciting part of his life. That was the Grand Prix anyway. Any more comments?
What was the food like?
Bar
food.
Corporate entertainment. We had some very nice sea bream and raw steak. What's raw steak called? I forget. I always like that. Not carpaccio. Formula 2. Should we move on?
Yes. Quick whistle stop of Formula 2 and Formula 3, please.
Well, just a quick whistle. Flipping rules and regulations again. Alex Dunn, this superbly talented Irish boy that was leading the championship, tremendous in the rain, pulled out a big lead, came out, and they all changed another set. They had to change, not explained by the commentator, of course. Formula 2, you have to run 2 compounds in the shorter race, but when it rains, you still have to stop and do 4 new wheels, even if it's the same intermediates, which is what they did.
I didn't know that.
That wasn't anybody. So all of a sudden they come into the pits. Well, why are they coming into the pits? Who knows?
But yeah, you've got to have your mandatory pit stop regardless whether it's rain or not. Yeah.
So even when Dunn pitted, he came out and he was held up for a bit by someone that had stayed out for longer. So he won. Brilliant drive. Fantastic in the rain until we found out later that evening that he'd had a 10-second penalty for failing to engage the startup procedure. Nobody's explained. I've tried to go on the internet today to find out what the startup procedure is. I can't find any. Nobody seems to explain what buttons.
Wow.
Well, Alex thought, I think the excuse was that because it was a rolling start behind the safety car, that didn't count. Because obviously maybe it's when you come to the grid, you have to, whatever the startup, engaging the startup procedure is, I don't know. So
that seems harsh.
That the brilliant young British driver who might be racing in the Grand Prix next year, Arvin Lindblad, won the Formula 2 race. No, because he was then disqualified, of course, for running low tyre pressures. We talked about this MotoGP, we said in cars he got the same, so his tyres was too low. So he didn't win the Formula 2 race. So instead, the Czech guy, Roman Stanek, won it. To thank Luke Browning, came up from 12th on the grid, took a very good 3rd. He's good in the wet, but obviously not so good in qualifying. The reverse grid race was run by Luca Fornaroli for the second race running, and that added to 5th place in the main race has put him to the top of the points table with Dunn not scoring his points. His seconds put him back
from nowhere.
Dropped into about 9th place, I think, 10th place. So that was the Formula 2, brilliant drive. unrewarded. Rules is rules, mate. Rules is rules.
There's a line.
Formula 3 was a washout. We had our Freddie super fast Freddie Slater
Super
was on
Freddie
pole.
Slater.
We'll keep quiet about the fact it was a reverse grid sprint race on this occasion because it was Freddie. So Freddie started 12th because he was started on pole. He led for a few laps, but he got shuffled down to about 8th or 9th. But in the results, he's 26th. So Freddie must have done something wrong, which I'm not aware of. Then they all went out for the main race and they crashed on the green flag lap, and then they went out and tried to race again. They crashed again, and so that was it. Washed out. Didn't have a race. And I can't even remember who did win the reverse grid race. But there you have it. Very wet. Formula 3 race cancelled on the Sunday morning.
Did the sun come out at all weekend?
It was nice on Saturday. The sprint races were in sunshine. It was just the race day.
Did you drive?
You know what?
Did you drive or fly?
Fly. A chauffeur. Mercedes, electric Mercedes from the airport. Very smooth. So that was that. Formula 3, Formula 2s. I mean, it's all good entertaining race. The Porsches were good racing, but no overtaking. Nobody can overtake anybody anymore these days. No British drivers up front at all in Porsches, so I lost interest. World Superbikes. We're going out to Hungary for a track I've never really heard of, Ballaton Park, where, as I already said, top Brand Razgatlioglu won all 3 races. Nicolo Bulliger, his challenger for Ducati, came second in 2 of them, but actually I think he dropped to 13th for a reason in the second race, which gave Sam Lowes a second place to add to his 3rd place. Sorry, it's World Superbikes. I'm losing interest. I'm just waiting for Top Rack to come to World Superbikes to see how good he is.
I bet the rest of the field are looking forward to him going there as well, actually.
Over to America for 2 quick races. IndyCar, Laguna Seca, I think I said this last week, got the corkscrew. Every fan's rave about the look of it, but it doesn't really produce good racing either. And Alex Palou proved me right, sadly, by just dominating it. It was a good McLaren of the Danish kid, Christian Lundgaard, battled through to 2nd. Colton Hurta, who's not good enough to have a super license, finished 3rd. The best story for the Brits was Callum Ilott in the Prema car, came through to 6th, which is a good result for him. But again, we talked about this with the IndyCar Oval race at Iowa. Was it the last round they did or before? This glorious Californian setting. You might have seen, you've been there to Laguna Seca with a corkscrew and banks, respect, empty. And it's, I don't
Crazy.
know. Yeah, I mean, maybe they didn't have boom boom. Maybe IndyCar needs boom boom at volume 11. But it's bizarre, isn't it? Because you've got a big city not that far away, and glorious part of the world.
Well, they've got Car Week there this week, so it'd be rammed with supercars and hypercars and stuff.
Yeah, dribs and drabs of spectators. I really don't understand what the American motorsport fan is looking for, whether it's too expensive or because they're spectacular.
It's a shame. We said this about IndyCar 2 weeks ago about the lack of people there, but the same now. Wow, crazy. Tiff, we got a couple of messages on. We're doing this live.
Someone's found out that we're live.
David says, anyone else in the audience?
What?
David asked if there was anyone else.
Right.
Yeah, and Griff's Garage said, what's stopping the overtakes? What's stopping the overtakes at Spa?
The aero. You can't follow close enough. Quite simply that. You go through corners, you drop back half a second, and even the DRS, as we explained, isn't long enough. So half a second behind you, the DRS will let you catch up to the gearbox in front of you, probably gain you 0.3 of a second, but just not enough to overtake. And then you spend the rest of the beautiful swooping corners that everybody loves, dropping back over half a second, because you're in the dirty air. And then the DRS just gets you back nearer the gearbox, but not enough. So you either got to...
So what's the perfect overtaking circuit?
Well, I think Azerbaijan's one of the best. The straight's about 2 miles long, and they've got the DRS right. They've got the DRS. The other ones, of course, that make it work is like Brazil. And I always said, if you design a circuit, you need 2 DRS sections consecutively. So then you've only got 1 corner to drop back on due to bad aero. Because they do the whole of Interlagos and come round to the main straight, and they're 0.7 behind. They use the DRS past the pits to get the gearbox of the car in front. And then there's just a quick S before you're back onto a second DRS where you do the overtakes down to that wonderful fast left-hander. So circuits that have DRSs consecutively with only a small corner. I mean, a bit like Saudi. The Saudi circuit's got lots of DRSs, which pretty much guarantees you can get close enough to overtake, and they do. So it's just DRS, which is just slipstream. Just don't think of it as artificial. It's just giving cars back natural slipstream, because a long straight with slipstream you overtake. More poor crowds as we stay in America for the NASCAR boys went to the Indianapolis, where again we spoke about IndyCar being there, didn't we? No crowd there, you know. And how it just affects him watching on the television. To me, when you just see it's empty, and you just suddenly see a spattering of a few people in these vast grandstands. But it was actually a really good race. I mean, it was a bit tactical again because it's a very single file track at Indianapolis because it's quite a low banking, so they can't go 3 wide. Lots of weaving on restarts and quite a few punctures because they're running more and more camber and low tire pressures to try and go faster. So a few hit the wall for punctures. Well, it ended up being an emotional win for Bubba Wallace, who's always emotional. And he got lucky with tactics where someone had a yellow flag just when he needed to pit to have tyres. And he came out because Kyle Larson had been pretty much dominating it and running up the front. But as soon as you get a yellow flag where it ruins your strategy, I mean, Bubba was still on the pace, and it wasn't slow. And he led 2 restarts at the end and held off Larson, who couldn't get by him. But Bubba's always, I presume he's a black driver. And I think he's had racist abuse in the past, and I think he's had quite a few journalists sort of rubbished him about 4 or 5, 6 years ago. So every time he does anything good, it's all tears and "you don't believe in me, you gotta believe in me now." And the tears were coming, and his little new child was there, and you know, someone said, you know, you haven't won a race for 100. It's 100 races since your last win, and he said, "Yeah, now it's 0. It's 0." More tears. And Bubba says he'll now wait for his next, you know. I mean, he does get hit on social media, and you know, it's like these poor female footballers, you know. But you know, sadly, you go to a football match or go to a ranting march up somewhere, you'll see the sort of human beings we sadly have in our society, and they're going to put rubbish on the internet.
But Tiff, I've said this a 1,000 times. You pay me 100 grand a week or £1 million a year, whatever, and you can call me whatever you want. You call me whatever you want anyway. It wouldn't. It'd be water off a duck's back.
You have to turn it off.
Yeah.
You don't. I mean, you can't stop people doing it because that's the human race that we sadly live with these days. But so it's quite emotional.
It would literally. It annoys me when I see lots of English footballers mention it. They say, "Oh, the racist abuse is awful. It's horrendous. We shouldn't have to work under these conditions." They're getting paid 250 grand a week. Get over it. Who cares? Call me what you want.
You go too far, you'll be in trouble. You'll be cancelled next. So yeah, of course, Bubba is now the 13th different winner as they narrow the field down to 16 for the playoffs. Only 3 are going to get through in points at the moment. There's 3 more races, so there's people high up in the points that still haven't had a win.
Just give me a few names that are on the list already.
Tyler Reddick's the big one. Tyler Reddick, he was the points champion last year, I think, because they set him a points champion as well as the playoff knockouts. So Tyler Reddick,
he's the biggest name that's not on it so far.
What? Yeah, he hasn't won.
He's the biggest.
He's leading the points, but if you have 3 more winners, he could have as many points as he wants, but he won't get into the playoffs because he hasn't done a win. And one of those 3 races is, I think it's not Talladega. I think it's an Indianapolis Daytona race or Talladega. So it's a bit of a lottery, the super speedways where anyone from the back of the grid could win. But quickly, back of the grid, best story of the NASCAR was in 17th place was Catherine Legg, who's tried to make
amazing.
A lot of abuse from drivers. She caused a crash at one of the ovals where I think she was innocent. She moved up, but she was well off the speed of the leaders. And one of the leaders just went in the back of her and said, "Well, you were going too slow." She said, "Well, I was trying to let you past." So she finished 17th at the 39 cars, still on the lead lap, sandwiched between 2 race winners that are going to the playoffs. William Barham was one ahead of her. Chase Briscoe was one behind her. And she was 2 places ahead of some bloke called Shane Van Gisbergen. So big up for Legg. She's out there trying to battle her way into a career she's only done one-off races here. Then it's a limited program and a small team that hasn't got all the best equipment. So
She's not
well
getting
done.
younger. She's is she 40 or am I
Yeah, she's
insulting
about
her there?
45.
40, 42?
Yeah, but she's raced everything, because she's raced at Indy in
Oh,
the end of,
amazing.
and she had a bad Indy 500 when she crashed as well. So she's had some bad luck. But so just quickly back home, British Superbikes. I've got it recorded to watch. Unfortunately, to give you the story today or tonight, we were hoping to do it last night. I read the results, but instead of World Super, 3 different winners, big high-speed crashes, riders all only battered and bruised. But apparently, there was some absolutely fabulous racing to this title. It's really hotting up after Bradley Ray.
It is close, yeah.
Because Scott Redding had a win, so Scott Redding he was the British champion. 2019. Went off to World Superbikes, did quite well in Ducati, kind of second and third, then had a BMW ride in Worlds, and he just disappeared off the platform. But so he's come back, had a win, emotional. That's his first win since probably 2021 in anything. Kyle Ride had a win, the reigning champion, came back to win one of the races. Bradley Ray was a really good entertainment down the road in Kent. And I'm sure for some people, probably people that like boom boom music at volume 11, probably enjoyed the Formula E's running in and out of the XL, where Nick Cassidy won both races for Jaguar. And the Jaguar
Well,
boss, James Barkley was in tears because they had a terrible year, Jaguar. They didn't win anything.
yeah.
About.
Well,
They won last time.
Dominated towards the end. Yeah, they dominated at the end of the season. James Barkley's leaving. Nick Cassidy's leaving. What a way to go.
Oh, no. So they've got the manager's gone, and one of the drivers gone. And Evans, the other driver, was moaning like mad that the team, they weren't helping me. I helped him. He didn't help me. They get very upset, don't they? So anyway, no more E's until Sao Paulo in December, where there'll be no more.
It was I don't want to be rude about it, but it was, you look online, it's just all it is influencers in London. They're very cool looking baggy outfits and stuff. And
had a great time today.
Fuck all I'll ever be. Wow.
My free day out.
Well,
that was the other thing. We didn't just have boom booms at Spa for 80 minutes. We had the roving reporter who went to the Max Verstappen stand, where guess what? They all stood up and whooped and whooped. And amazingly, I can't believe this. Are you having a good time in the Max Verstappen fan? Oh, I thought someone was going to say, no, it's shit. But no, apparently they all said, yeah. Are you having fun? Yeah.
Catherine Lake's 45.
If you had a free ticket to the London XL and were given a free grandstand, you probably enjoyed your day out. But had you paid a lot of money to be there, you might have thought twice about the money you spend. In fact, you don't just go and get free these days. The influencers get paid to go, don't they?
Yeah, I think so. Some of them. Catherine Lake's 45. And the Monday Club OTW says, are the FIA getting rid of DRS next year? Sadly not.
Well, no, I don't know. No. This is something I keep on mentioning.
No one knows, actually.
Good point. Because in order to reduce the drag on the straights, so they don't run out of electrical power by air resistance, we've got this active aero. So all cars on all straights drop front wings and rear wings. So I don't think they could have DRS as well. I think there might be a bit of a push to pass on the boosts thing. That's a very good point. I think there will be some form of artificial overtaking aid. But because funny enough, the first active aero, dropped the rear wing only. And apparently the computer models and the wind tunnels and the driver simulators, they couldn't control the car in a straight line because they took off so much rear wing to reduce drag. So now they had to make it so both wings go down. So if you then took more air out of the back wing to get a bit of a DRS, the car might get unstable again. So I'm not looking forward to next year very much. I don't think
it could be the most epic year. We thought this year was going to be incredible. We thought Ferrari, McLaren, Mercedes, and Red Bull were all going to be so even. But
pesky McLaren's being so clever.
If it wasn't for McLaren being so good, then it would actually be very even.
Yeah, because Max is doing a great job hanging onto the gearbox of the Ferrari.
I did see a funny meme. You mentioned you love your memes, but one of Zach Brown, and when Lando wins, he's like, yeah, rah, rah. And then when Oscar wins, he's just like, congratulations, Oscar. Well done, Oscar.
I can't see Lando getting it. I can't. I really, sadly, I can't. And Oscar's just really is performing brilliantly at the moment.
Boy,
So on to
he's a cool
Hungary.
customer.
Hungary,
Yeah.
more lack of overtaking at Hungary. We've been turning up at the weekend. Formula One, Formula Two, Formula Three. Quite an entertaining track, but overtaking hard. World Rally Champs. I'd like to go out there to Finland. 1,000 Lakes Rally is its old nickname, isn't it? And they go through. It's one of those.
Mm.
They use real roads. There's not so the surface is very good because they have a lot of gravel roads in Scandinavia that aren't tarmac because the weather's always so bad in the winter. So they go these humps at 110 miles an hour or something, relying on the pace note to tell them whether it kicks left or kicks right over a blind hump at 100.
Crazy.
And the huge pine trees welcome you if you dare to stray off. Elfyn Evans, actually, I think he won it last year. Yeah, I think he's almost won it twice. So he's not. It doesn't just be Scandinavians that win there. So hopefully Elfyn can get back into the winning circle. But I'm sure Kalle Rovanperä will be thinking the same. So really exciting rallying film footage to be watched at the weekend. Over in America, the IMSA sports cars, the hypercars go off to the magnificent Road America, while the NASCAR boys are back on a racetrack at Watkins Glen, where again you see a driver that's not high in the points, like Shane van Gisbergen. So the driver might be better on the road courses, could win that and take a place, because people are a bit upset still that Van Gisbergen's in the playoffs because of his racetrack wins. That's at Watkins Glen. That's always pretty entertaining. Back home, BTCCCCs, Croft are back. The touring cars are back at Croft along with their support races. If you don't want to venture that far north, go to Silverstone. It's more of a club race meeting, but it's got the GB3 and GB4 single seaters. So two good single seater races, plus a GT Cup, which isn't the British GT Championship, it's a lower level. Radicals are racing, Porsches are racing. So pop it up.
That sounds good.
To go, yeah, pop it to Silverstone at the weekend.
I was racing Silverstone on my little nephew's. Well, he's not little. He's 6'2". His sim yesterday. Sims is just great. I don't get them. They're getting better and better. He's got this incredible setup with all these monitors and haptic feedback in your hands. And saying about how many successful Australian racing drivers there have been over the years, there's been a lot. And now, of course, Oscar that could go on and win the championship.
Yeah, well, Kiwis and the Kiwis and Aussies. It's a bit like
Mm.
Brazilians. I think drivers that leave home, when they're 16 now, or in my day, leave home at 17 or 18, and go into a completely strange country. It's sort of, I've got to make this work, because I've sacrificed so much to come here.
Yeah.
And they get a mentality is really good.
Very focused, yeah.
The British boys have just, England still don't know the same clubbing or where, So it's a funny thing, but there's been some really brilliant drivers from New Zealand and Australia that have come up the ranks. But I'm pretty sure we're going to get their world champion this year. But when's the last Australian world champion? Was that Jack Brabham? Who else? I don't think anyone else has won it. Have they? Am I missing something obvious?
Mark Webber never did.
No. It's got to be Jack Brabham.
Ricardo never did.
59, Jack Brabham. 59.60, sorry, 59.60.
Can you go through every year, can you?
What? Well,
could you go through every year with after a few pints?
No. I get a bit confused when we get to the 1970s, but the 60s when I was a real addict. Before I was too busy racing myself to work out who won and who lost the Grand Prix of the weekend. But Jack Brabham and his Cooper. And then he won he won it in his own car, didn't he, in 66? Yeah, I'm sure Brabham won the title in 66 in his own car. With an Australian
a
Repco.
I'm still thinking about Catherine Legg. You're on to Jack Brabham. I'm still thinking Catherine Legg.
What about Catherine?
On that note, no, nothing. On that note, I'm going to bed. Thanks, Jordy. We'll see you next week.
Good luck, Paul. Cheers.
I think
Cheers,
this is going to end.
You've got to look.
There's three.
Three. You will be putting this up now on the internet before you go to sleep.
Phil, this is live on YouTube, so you can view on YouTube now. And Phil will put it on Spotify today.
Right.
Sometime. Thank you.
When are you coming
home?
You're going to be home next week for Hungary story.
I think I'm on an aeroplane, but from a lounge somewhere in the world.
So you're not home.
We'll see you next week.
This week. No,
Home Tuesday. Just give
a
all
week,
my
a
public
week,
details to
a week
everybody.
today. Then a week today.
But my son's staying in my house, and he's like home alone. He's like Macaulay Culkin. He's booby trapped the whole house. Don't try and steal my only TV or anything like that. I've got nothing to steal anyway. See you next week.